He called himself the devil and allegedly dangled a woman over a 17-story balcony. Today, jurors heard chilling testimony in court in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial. A longtime friend of Cassie Ventura took the stand, accusing Sean Combs of violent outbursts, a death threat, and instilling fear. I'm going to break it all down with Law&Crime's reporter Elizabeth Millner, who is in that courtroom for all of it. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. That's right, Morgan & Morgan, they are investigating claims that patients weren't properly warned about this risk. It's free to check, just takes a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on screen, click the link below, or head over to forthepeople.com/LCDepo to see if you qualify. The trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs took yet another chilling turn today when a woman took the stand to describe a night that she says she will never forget, because she claims Combs allegedly lifted her off the ground and dangled her over the edge of a balcony, screaming at her, "You know what the bleep you did." And that's not all. She told jurors that this hip-hop mogul once made a terrifying threat about killing her. We're going to get into all of these harrowing details and a lot more. So to do that, let me bring on Law&Crime's reporter Elizabeth Millner, who is inside that courtroom for every moment of the testimony in action. Elizabeth, great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come back here on Sidebar. Before we even get into that, something interesting that happened today. The way this whole day started, my understanding, is there was a discussion about D-Rock. D-Rock, one of Sean Combs' security members. He's come up a lot in testimony. Were there messages between Combs and D-Rock that were part of the conversation even before the first witness took the stand?
So what a lot of people don't realize is that when we get into the courtroom in the morning, more often than not, there's arguments outside of the presence of the jury. Then the jury is later brought in after these arguments. And so the jury was able to see all of these messages. They were present while this stipulation was read between the parties. So first thing right off the top this morning, before we had the first witness take the stand, so nobody's on the witness stand during this, but the government presents the stipulation between the parties. It pertains to March 5th of 2024, when Homeland Security investigation seized a cell phone from Diddy's Miami home, which is the Two-Star Island property. And so the judge admitted these exhibits. And so what we saw from the next exhibit was this preliminary device report. And it confirmed that Apple IDs, Diddy's Twitter, and Snapchat were, I guess, extracted from the devices. And so we saw some text messages going back to September 13th of 2025, which the owner, which we presume to be Diddy or Sean Combs, said, "Hit my shorty, ask her what's going on." D-Rock writes, "Okay." And again, I'm paraphrasing here because those messages went by super fast, but the owner of this device and cell phone, again, who we presume to be Diddy, said, "I thought you were coming to the concert next week." D-Rock says something along the lines of, "Okay," and then the owner of this device said, "Call me," because when we're seeing these messages displayed, it doesn't say Diddy or PD or Love, none of that. It literally says owner, so that's why we presume it to be Diddy. And then D-Rock writes, "She wants to see you. Cass calling the studio looking for you." The owner of these devices say, "Okay, it's time for the ice. What's Cass doing?" D-Rock responds, "I was just checking on her. Cass was eating. She wants to see you. Talking to Cash, just gave her an ice pack." The owner says, "Does the eye look better?" And then D-Rock responded, "Rio and Justin saw her eye. We said a fight broke out in the club." And so we presume that obviously the Cass in this situation is Cassie Ventura. But it seemed like kind of the gist of these text messages were just about Diddy checking up on Cassie after some type of incident had occurred. Again, this was from September 13th of 2015, and whatever this incident was resulted in her having an injury that probably was bad enough that it needed an ice pack. And so I think the government was just kind of putting these in. They didn't add much context outside of just showing these messages. So possibly maybe the jury was confused on why we're seeing this with no witness to kind of break it all down. But those were admitted today before the witness took the stand.
So I think that's important. It's important because if you're saying this is a racketeering case and that he was using his assistants and his bodyguards to further criminal activity, and you see him essentially using his bodyguard to maybe cover up evidence of a violent episode, maybe evidence of force that was used for sex trafficking, and that he uses his security to constantly check up on Cassie, maybe cover up what was really going on. You could see the value of it. It also makes me wonder, is D-Rock going to take the stand? I mean, who else is going to take the stand? We got another, 4 weeks of trial? It'll be very interesting to see who else may take the stand. If you're talking about a racketeering conspiracy and, there's a lot of people a part of this alleged criminal enterprise, you have to wonder if other people in the inner circle are going to testify against him. Okay, so talking text, putting that to the side, talking digital evidence, the first witness of the day was forensic video expert Frank Piazza. Now, my understanding is that his testimony was centered around key pieces of digital evidence, really the 2016 tape, the footage of Sean Combs purportedly beating up Cassandra Ventura. Again, she's victim one in this case. By the way, they say that that was after a freak-off, so it helps with the sex trafficking claim. And the whole gist of it is the video footage we have, the video footage that the jury will see, is it real? Is it accurate? Is it authentic? What did Frank Piazza have to say about all that?
Yeah, so it was interesting kind of the way Frank Piazza was kind of breaking everything down. So to your point, Jesse, he is a forensic audio and video editor, and he has his own company where he does consulting, authentication, services, etc. And that has been going back the past 25 years because it began in 2000. But he's been doing this type of work at least in the earliest of 1995, where I was just a wee little baby around that time. But as far as just what he did for this case, and I thought what was an interesting point that the government said right at the beginning of his testimony is that normally he's a defense witness that is testifying, and so this time it's a little different. He was retained by the government, but as far as what he had analyzed cell phone video, surveillance video pertaining to the hotel incident in 2016, but also the sex videos, as he calls them, or the freak-off videos that we presume them to be, that were provided by the government. And so Frank Piazza explained that he analyzed 5 cell phone and surveillance videos. It was 3 different camera angles from the surveillance video and then 2 cell phone videos compiled together. And so as far as the cell phone videos go, and this was something that Officer Israel Flores alluded to when he was testifying, where he had explained that he had recorded the surveillance system that I guess was inside the Intercontinental Hotel back in, I guess, the security server, and it was recorded on an iPhone 6, according to Piazza. He says that there is color issues and lighting issues because of just, I guess, the old model of this particular phone, but the cell phone can still record an entire video. And so we saw an exhibit, that being the surveillance video from the hotel incident that was captured on the cell phone. So you can see kind of a little shaky in the hand, but you could also see Diddy hitting Cassie, kicking her and dragging her. And then he was explaining kind of the frame rates, them being about 30 frames per second. And his conclusion of this was that the cell phone video was not manipulated or tampered with, and that the cell phone recording was from the native system and it captured clean video from the surveillance system. Now, as far as the surveillance video goes, he did admit that there were some speed playback issues and it actually played back faster than normal. He explained that there were areas kind of motion activity, which again, Israel Flores had talked about during his testimony, that the cameras at the Intercontinental Hotel are motion activated. And Piazza explained that there were issues with the timestamp. So he said he was able to correct the speed issue and the distortion of the video as best as he could. And Piazza was able to slow down the video because, again, he said that the playback played a little bit faster than normal. And so he says the video he compiled together was the cell phone video, surveillance video, playing at a speed that would have been in real time. And so he says his conclusion as far as the surveillance video goes is that it wasn't manually altered, there are no anomalies going onto the file, and that the surveillance video accurately plays back the underlying footage. And so we see an exhibit of the corrected surveillance video, but only the first 15 seconds of that. Another exhibit of the continued video playing for about 55 seconds, and just more exhibits of them just kind of playing the surveillance video that we've seen a bunch of different times. And that Piazza was explaining that the timestamp kind of corrected itself and that the motion activity kind of embedded into the camera system caused it to jump ahead. And so, again, Piazza compiled all those 3 surveillance videos and cell phone videos into one big compilation that we did see in court today.
And basically, the end of the day, these are videos that the jury can rely upon. They're authentic. It purports to show what it purports to show. And there was a lot of pretrial litigation about this. Even the defense wanted to make sure that these videos wouldn't come in because they said that there was a chance they were manipulated or altered or distorted in some way. Was there anything specific about the compilation that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, the compilation in its entirety, including the black frames that were kind of put into the video so that way the jurors could realize that, okay, a camera's about to cut to another position in the surveillance video. But altogether, the total runtime, or TRT as we call it in the biz, was 11 minutes and 53 seconds. So the first 10 seconds is something we've all seen. Cassie with her black bag walking down the hallway in the direction of the camera. The next 20 seconds captures multiple angles of Cassie walking down the hallway. You can see the black frames kind of within those first 30 seconds start to show, which again shows that these cameras are switching around. So in the next 4 minutes of this video, we see Diddy running down the hallway, and then it's something that we've all seen before at this point. It's him kicking, punching, dragging Cassie. Diddy grabs Cassie's bags. Cassie makes a call using the hotel line, kind of over off the wall near that elevator bank or elevator lobby. Then we see Diddy walking back to the hotel room. He reemerges without the bags. He grabs the cell phone from Cassie, throws the vase at Cassie. Again, things that we've already seen before. Cassie using the hotel phone. Diddy says something to her because when this video is playing, even though kind of it's a mixture of the surveillance video as well as the cell phone video, we're not hearing any type of audio. So we don't know what is being said between the two parties. Even when Officer Flores arrives, kind of in this next portion, we don't hear what he's saying, although when he was testifying, he explained that he was kind of zooming in to see his shoes and how shiny they were, but we didn't hear that when the video played today. So after Officer Flores arrives, both Flores and Cassie are telling Diddy something. Again, we're not able to hear it. Then we see that zoom in into Officer Flores' shoes. Cassie walks away. Flores makes a call on that same hotel phone, and then that's the end of the cell phone video. Then Diddy reappears in the hallway. Israel Flores is following behind him. Then you see Diddy and Israel Flores talking in that hallway. And then Cassie reemerges on the other side of the hallway, on the opposite side, goes towards the hotel room. Then you see Cassie, Diddy, Israel Flores go off camera. Then Cassie reemerges with her bags. Then Israel Flores reemerges. Then Diddy reemerges holding a cell phone. And the end of the clip, and again, this is an 11-minute video. I kind of just compiled it all together. The end of the clip, you see Diddy putting a cell phone to his ear, and then the video ends. And so while on the stand, Frank Piazza was explaining that either Diddy was making a call or he was receiving a call, one way or the other, we see the video end with Diddy on the phone, on its cell phone.
And the jury will have to be tasked with, is that consistent with what Cassie testified to and maybe what others had testified to? And, you know, again, it seems like it shows what we all think it shows, although I was curious. I was curious what the cross-examination was going to be. What was the defense going to question him about? And I understand that defense attorney Tenny Garagos questioned him. What exactly did she question him about? What was the strategy there?
Yeah, so it seemed like really the focus of the cross-examination of Frank Piazza was the timestamps. First, Tenny Garagos, she was discussing what is your understanding of the source of the video and how they came into your possession. Piazza says that the surveillance video was exported from the native system, and then the cell phone video was a recording of the native system, kind of confirming what Officer Israel Flores says. But I think the big mystery is where the surveillance video was actually sourced from. And according to Piazza, he wasn't sure how the surveillance video came into the government's possession. But as far as just more of the cross-examination, we do see an exhibit of the same hotel video showing Cassie in that elevator bank or lobby. But what's interesting is during the cross-examination is that Tenny Garagos isn't referring to the male or the female seen on the video as Cassandra Ventura or Cassie, or the male being Sean Combs or Diddy or PD or Love or anything like that. Instead, it's just the male in the video, the female in the video, not using their real names. But going back to the timestamp issue, you see the timestamp kind of jump. It says that 2 minutes and 15 seconds are played throughout this entire duration of the video. However, the video itself was about 3 minutes long. And then you see one timestamp jump from 10:50 to 10:56. And Frank Piazza was explaining that when the video gets pixelated, that's when you kind of see the timestamp jump, and that I guess within the system it kind of corrects itself, but the time code was kind of struggling. But if you count the frames, the system is constantly correcting itself. So then you see another timestamp issue where it jumps from 11:57 to 12:08. And in that particular one, you see Diddy kind of holding Cassie's bags in that elevator bank or elevator lobby. And then next thing you know, they're just suddenly on the ground. And so Frank Piazza was explaining it's not uncommon for this to happen for security systems. He was explaining that the system's motion that it's getting will kind of make that change. And while the female, aka Cassie, was standing in the corner, there wasn't much movement. So the system's not kind of picking up on the fact that there is movement, there is human beings in there who are breathing and moving along, but instead, because they're kind of standing still in this position, the camera's not capturing that particular moment, and that kind of accounts for why that you see this sudden time jump. And so then they got more into the timestamps jumping again, and it was really kind of just like, it seemed like we were going frame by frame, seconds by seconds, where you're just kind of seeing just these different instances of the time jumping. But according to Frank Piazza, he maintained that that this was kind of a clear and accurate depiction. And again, he had those black frames kind of embedded in between the different camera shots kind of changing. So it seems like when the jury does go back for deliberations, instead of having the entire exhibits in different pieces and different chunks, they're able to just watch this 11-minute and 53-second video to kind of see it all come together. And again, to your point, Jesse, the defense didn't want the compilation video to be going back with the jury for their deliberations. They just wanted the government to use it as a demonstrative, but the judge ruled that it will go back with the jury once we eventually get to deliberations.
And the relevance of this, of course, is for the prosecution, they want to say this is evidence of Combs using force to essentially coerce Cassandra Ventura into sex trafficking, that she had just left a freak off, that he's literally dragging her back in the direction of the room. So if you're talking about sex work, and she had claimed that Jules, one of these male escorts who they'd been used in multiple cities, and Cassie Ventura was allegedly forced into freak-offs in multiple places, that you have violence, you have sex work, you have a travel component, it's all sex trafficking. Whereas the defense will say, this is a really unfortunate episode, but it is an episode of domestic violence. That Cassie is not a victim of sex trafficking, but perhaps a victim of an unfortunate, tragic, toxic relationship filled with jealousy and anger and a lack of trust. So at the end of the day, I think maybe the jury is going to say, okay, we see what this is, but what's the context of it? What does it exactly prove? But that wasn't the only footage that came into play today. Didn't this expert also review sex tape videos? I mean, were they videos of freak-offs?
Well, we presume them to be videos of freak-offs because of the judge's kind of order going on. We, in the gallery, didn't see this particular footage. And from my understanding, I don't believe the jurors saw this footage either, but it's something that they already know about because they've seen screenshots of these freak-off videos or sexually explicit videos. But as far as the videos go and how Frank Piazza played a role into that, he worked on about 10 sexually explicit videos or freak-off videos, as we presume them to be. So what we saw inside the gallery was just the stipulation between parties, and just a little bit more just about these videos were turned over by one of Cassie's devices, but from under the Frank Black user account. And so these videos go back to October 8th of 2014, December 4th of 2014, October 14th of 2012, as well as October 20th of 2012. And so as far as Frank Piazza's role in just kind of enhancing these particular sex videos, as he calls them, he says his role was to enhance the sound or the audio of them. And so these exhibits were admitted under seal, but we didn't see the videos, we didn't hear the video. So although Frank Piazza says he worked on the sound, it was nothing that it was like played in open court for us to hear. But these videos were admitted, and again, I confirmed kind of in my notes here that they didn't play these for the jury during the testimony, and that's kind of when the direct testimony had ended for Frank Piazza.
So quite the digital evidence day, but we have to now move on to the next witness. So this was Brianna Bongolan. This is somebody we've heard about before during the course of this trial. This is somebody who actually filed a lawsuit against Sean Combs. We talked about her previously on Law and Crime, very close friend of Cassie Ventura, and she accused Sean Combs of violently assaulting her. Elizabeth, I'm going to allow you to jump into the details here, but she describes this terrifying balcony incident. So who exactly is she? I mean, what is her connection to Combs and Cassie? And what did she say about this balcony incident?
Yeah, so Bonna was a witness that I kind of was interested in hearing what she had to say on the witness stand, because I had covered her lawsuit when she had filed it just last year, or honestly, maybe a few months ago at this point. Everything's kind of blending together. But she had explained that, yes, Diddy did allegedly hold her over this 7th-story balcony over at Cassie's apartment in Los Angeles. And so as far as kind of her connection to Cassie, her and Cassie are friends, yes, and that she would hang out with Cassie at Cassie's LA apartment. They would work on designs together. They would talk about things that they were doing, but she also admitted that the two would do drugs together, something that Cassie had explained during her testimony, and that they would do drugs such as weed and cocaine and ketamine, and it became a habit. And so she was explaining that normally kind of their core group, it seemed like, was Mia, was Carrie Morgan, who was a witness in this case, Deontay Nash, also a witness, but also a producer named Rob Holiday, and how they would always hang out together. And so we start to get into the exhibit photos where we see kind of that friendship kind of show, as far as the jury kind of seeing the connection between Cassie and Bonna. You see Cassie and Bonna shopping together in 2016. What was interesting about this particular exhibit, Jesse, was that Diddy wasn't with them during this shopping trip that they did together, but Diddy, according to Bonna's testimony today, was asking where Cassie was, and that Cassie ended up showing Bonna just this list of places that they had been to, but that Cassie never revealed to Diddy that they had been to these particular places. Instead, he just kind of was like, you've been here, 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 and here. We didn't see that as an exhibit or anything like that, but Bonna was a little like, okay, that's a little weird of why that's kind of happening. And so as far as everything else that she's witnessed, she explained that she's seen in one instance Diddy throwing a knife at Cassie's direction, how Cassie and Bonna FaceTimed after Cassie had a black eye ahead of the Perfect Match premiere, so we presume it to be after the hotel incident. But as far as Bonna herself, she explained that Diddy did something to her too, and this happened in September of 2016. Bonna was over at Cassie's apartment, and her apartment was on the her apartment or condo was on the 17th floor. So we see an exhibit photo of Cassie's then apartment. Cassie was there at her place, so was Bonna, and Bonna's then girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend. And so Bonna was explaining that she was sleeping. Diddy came to Cassie's front door and began banging on the door. Bonna got super stressed out when Diddy began banging on this door. So Bonna rushed to hide her now ex-girlfriend into the bathroom. She closed the bathroom door, and then she went to the balcony. And so Bonna was explaining that she was trying to find a blunt, a marijuana blunt, and light this blunt to act casual when she was on the balcony. So then we see an exhibit photo, that being the 17th-story balcony where you can actually see the ledge. And so the prosecution was asking Bonna just about her height and her weight, where she explained she's 5'1". Around that time, because of the drug use, she explained on the stand that she weighed 100 to 115 pounds, and that the ledge itself on Cassie's balcony only goes to Bonna's waist. And so she said she was able to kind of lean over across this rail, but then all of a sudden she's lifted up by her armpits, and Bonna's feet were on the rail, and she was kind of trying to push herself to keep herself from falling. And the person who was holding her up was Sean Combs, aka Puff, aka Diddy. And so Bonna was explaining that Diddy was yelling at her very loudly, saying something along the lines of, "You know what the F you did," and said it multiple times. And she had no idea what he was even talking about. Even today in 2025, she says she has no idea still what he was talking about. And so she explained that she didn't know necessarily how long he was holding her up, but she said because he said, "You know what the F you did," so many times, she estimates that it's around 10 to 15 seconds, and then he threw her onto the furniture. And so Bonna said she didn't know she was actually injured around the time. Then Cassie comes out of her room. She seemed in disbelief and said something along the lines of, Cassie said this to Diddy, "Did you just hang her over the balcony?" And so Cassie told Diddy that Bonna's girlfriend, or now ex-girlfriend, was in her condo at the time, and Diddy ended up leaving. And Bonna explained that he left swiftly after learning that her then girlfriend was inside the condo. And so then Bonna ended up leaving Cassie's apartment to go home. She said after this incident she was shaking a lot, and said she doesn't remember all the details from that night, but she explained that she had bruises and she had back and neck pain. And so we saw exhibits of really just gnarly bruises. Like it really looked kind of gross. And so you see Bonna's back of her leg. It has a bruise that she took on the same day. But I think kind of the gross part to me, I should say, is just kind of a hole you see within this particular bruise. And so then you kind of see the same bruised photo, but you kind of see a timestamp taken along with the photo or the screenshot where it says September 26th of 2016 at 9:45 a.m. So Bonna was explaining that she went to the chiropractor on the same day because she was in pain, and the chiropractor asked her, "Who did this to you?" And Bonna said, "I was freaked out and I just paid the chiropractor, took the neck brace and left." She explained she didn't tell the chiropractor who did this to her because she was scared. And so the next thing we see is an exhibit of Bonna with her back. It has a whole bunch of bandages on it. It was taken, or at least sent to her, on September 30th of 2016 because it was her girlfriend who actually took the photos of her. But you see Bonna, she has a neck brace on from the chiropractor after she said she was being slammed into the patio furniture. And Bonna was asked, "Did you seek medical care after this?" And she explained she didn't, but after she had gotten sober, she started to kind of feel more pain from this incident, and she said she was kind of filled with drugs around the time that this happened, so the pain kind of was like an after effect. But those pictures were pretty harsh to see, for sure. But as she was explaining, she said that the pain kind of came as an aftershock as opposed to when it had happened, that she felt it instantly or anything like that. But she did take photos of it to kind of prove that this happened to her.
Very similar to Cassie Ventura's photographs of her alleged injuries, right? You know, it's one thing to have the testimony, it's another thing to have corroborating evidence about it. And even if you go to the beginning of any one of Sean Combs' indictments, because he's been hit with superseding indictments, I mean, the very first few paragraphs are talking about a campaign, a pattern of abuse of women and the use of violence. And you have to wonder if this is testimony that will help corroborate the accounts of the two key witnesses in this case, victim number one, Cassandra Ventura, and Jane, victim number two, who's going to testify. And you just hear about a racketeering criminal enterprise where Combs allegedly used his resources and his wealth and his power and his assistance to further violence against women. And the more they're trying to sell the narrative that he is this crime boss that was engaged in all kinds of criminal activity, this seems to be relatively consistent with it. But I also understand she testified about a separate incident where he threatened her life almost, right?
So Bonna was explaining that, yes, Diddy made threats to her too. So we see kind of at the start of this part of the testimony, we see an exhibit photo of Bonna's friend, Bad Boy, who has no relation to Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records, none of that, but his name is Bad Boy, boy with an I. And then we see a photo of Cassie. They're in Malibu. It's April of 2016, and this was, I guess, a photo shoot that they were doing. And so Bonna was explaining that Diddy wasn't at the photo shoot at first, or Diddy wasn't at the photo shoot necessarily, but he was at a house that was close to the beach where the photo shoot was taking place. And so during this incident, Diddy allegedly told Bonna, "I'm the devil, I can kill you." And even while Bonna was even just saying that phrase, she was kind of shaky in her voice, just kind of recalling it. It seemed like something that really stuck with her because she had explained that there were just certain incidents, because she did admit that she was doing drugs around that time period. But it's these particular incidents that she says that she definitely recalls. And so Bonna was explaining that she might have been on cocaine during this particular threat, but she said she brushed off this threat because she got confidence from the cocaine, and she said that the threat sticks out in her mind, but she didn't disclose this particular threat during the government's during her first meeting with the government. So you can bet during the cross-examination that that's really where the defense was trying to poke holes into just why she didn't disclose just during that first meeting. But Bonna was explaining on the stand that during the first meeting that she had with the government, she initially just thought it was just a meet and greet with them. She didn't realize she had to disclose every single thing, every single incident, every single allegation during this first meeting. And so that's why she didn't tell prosecutors during this first meeting about this "I'm the devil, I can kill you" threat from Diddy, allegedly.
And by the way, this is interesting because before she took the stand, my understanding was she was going to plead the fifth, okay, against self-incrimination. She was granted an order of protection to testify, immunity, And I was wondering why. And then all of a sudden, all of this conversation comes up about drugs and who she allegedly supplied drugs to, which I think is important because, again, for racketeering, the prosecution has to prove at least 2 underlying crimes. One of them is with respect to drug offenses. And if Combs is accused of operating a pattern of criminal activity, not by himself but with others, I think her testimony might show why she maybe felt she was in legal jeopardy, right? What did she have to say about drugs?
Yeah, so I do want to take kind of a step back. So as far as just kind of the sequence of events goes, it was like arguments outside the presence of the jury. Then Bonner did her immunity deal. Then we get into the stipulations. Then Frank Piazza takes the stand. And so the jury's not seeing her invoke her Fifth Amendment right. They're not seeing the judge grant this immunity order. But she was asked about it while on the stand and while on direct, and so she confirmed that she does have to be truthful in it, same as the other witnesses in the case who have also taken immunity deals in order to testify. But as far as just kind of why she had to take an immunity deal in this case, she was explaining, and they kind of talked about it during the whole drug portion of her testimony, where there were times where Diddy gave Bonner drugs like ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine, G or GHB, and that she didn't do G, as she calls it, before being introduced to it by Diddy. But and this is something that was alluded to even during Cassie's testimony, where they were saying that Bonner and Cassie did drugs together, and they did it together weekly, even without Diddy, and that this kind of increased over time. But the drugs either came from Cassie, they came from Bonner, but Bonner herself would get drugs for Cassie, and in some instances got the drugs for Diddy, or Puff as she calls him, while on the stand. And so as far as the drugs that she got for Cassie, she got drugs for Cassie like oxy pills, ketamine, and drugs for Diddy was cocaine. And so she explained while on the stand that both she and Cassie tried to stop doing drugs to do better, and so they ended up kind of cooking together as a way to kind of stay sober. But unfortunately, as Bonner described, that sobriety didn't last for long. But while she was on the stand, she did testify that she is sober today.
Did she discuss the lawsuit that she filed against Sean Combs?
She did. So at first they being the prosecution, was kind of talking about Cassie's lawsuit at first, where Bonner was mentioned in the suit, not mentioned by name, but mentioned by her story, and that Bonner had spoken to Cassie after Cassie had filed it. And this was something that I thought was also interesting, because again, I remember covering when Bonner had filed her respective civil complaint, where I was kind of like, oh, the details from Cassie's settled lawsuit now, and then the details from Bonner's complaint just were different in terms of year, in terms of what actually was happening. And Bonner kind of explained that today, where she said that she told Cassie after Cassie filed her now settled civil lawsuit, that Bonner told her, girl, you got some of the info wrong. And so Cassie had said it happened at a hotel. Again, the date was wrong, and Cassie in her lawsuit said that her friend Tiffany was there, and Tiffany wasn't there, according to Bonner. She had said, she being Bonner, had said that Cassie was on drugs when this incident happened, and that Cassie ended up telling her lawyers that there was kind of an information mix-up, and that some of the allegations weren't necessarily correct. And so as far as Bonner is concerned, she said she ended up getting an attorney in January of 2024. However, from January of 2024 to June of 2025, she has a completely different lawyer. And again, going back to her first meeting with the government, when she had first met with the government with that first lawyer that she had, she explained that she didn't disclose everything during the meeting. But I think what's interesting is who her first attorney was kind of representing her. And that was a name that we are familiar with here at Law&Crime, and that being Tyrone Blackburn. Tyrone was even there at the first, I think, week and maybe week and a half of Diddy's trial. And Tyrone notably represents Little Rod in his civil complaints and civil suits against Sean Combs, aka Diddy. And so the reason that Tyrone Blackburn is no longer Bonner's attorney and no longer representing her is because he got some of the information in the demand letter wrong, and so Bonner ended up firing him. And so Bonner was explaining that around January of 2024, that's when, through Tyrone Blackburn, that a first demand letter was sent to Sean Combs, aka Diddy, about these allegations that she had, specifically about him allegedly hanging her over a balcony or dangling her over a balcony. And then even after that, Bonner explained that Tiffany Red, who is a friend of Cassie's, who's been vocal in the media about everything Cassie has gone through, Cassie herself, and a producer named Rob Holiday, all reached out to Bonner in early 2024 after she was going to go public, or after the demand letter was sent. And so I think what was interesting is that I think Deontay Nash kind of alluded to Rob Holiday and his feelings about Rob Holiday when he was testifying, where he said something along the lines of, I think he called him a broke producer. He said something that was a little shady. I was just like, oh my goodness. And so Bonner explained that Rob Holiday actually FaceTimed her after the fact, but I think it's interesting where he did this FaceTime, because according to Bonner, it looked like it was in Puff's backyard, and that Rob was actually calling on behalf of Puffy to settle everything with Bonner. Then you see a whole bunch of objections from the defense, but before those objections were sustained, Bonner said that she never spoke to Rob again after he tried to kind of speak on behalf of Puff, but she said that before the objection happened, that she was going to turn down Puff's offer to kind of make this go away. And again, there was an objection. That objection was sustained, but Bonner ended up filing her lawsuit later last year. So as far as why Bonner wanted to file her suit against Sean Combs, aka Diddy, she said she wanted to seek justice for what had happened to her. And she says, as far as the suit that had come out last year, that some of the allegations in them don't even match up to her testimony today. And I thought that was kind of an interesting point that she admitted to today. But she explained that the lawsuit is for $10 million, but she said that she would give back that money, or she hasn't obtained that money, nothing like that. But she said she wouldn't even be requesting this type of money, this large amount of money, if this incident never happened, and she would give it back if she was awarded this type of money for punitive damages. But as far as her suit goes, she did say multiple times that she just wanted to seek justice for what had happened to her.
That's very similar to what Cassie testified, right? That she would give back all the money that she settled with Sean Combs if she never had to engage in freak-offs. Look, the takeaways for me following this case, what I think the value is, her testimony so far for the prosecution is, again, she establishes this pattern of violence against women. She corroborates the violence against Cassie, and she supports the underlying predicate crimes of drug offenses for the racketeering conspiracy charge. That's what I mean, that seems to me the value of her testimony, and a lot for the jury to take away. But then it moved on to cross-examination. And I'm curious where they went, because I have to imagine if she's testifying about discrepancies between her story and Cassie's version of events, that might be something that's explored by the defense. So were they highlighting inconsistencies in her account? Where did they go on cross-examination of Ms. Mongolian?
Well, as far as where they went with the cross-examination, let me just say, I wouldn't want to be cross-examined by any of Diddy's defense attorneys, let alone Nicole Westmoreland, who was the one who cross-examined Bonner, and she was the one who cross-examined Don Richard. And so she, again, I have to say, she is tiny in stature, but she is mighty when she is giving her cross-examination. She's very direct, she's to the point, and she just wants to get the answer out of the witness. And so when they were discussing kind of the discrepancies between Cassie's lawsuit, her version of events, versus Bonner's lawsuit and her version of events, that Bonner said while under cross-exam that she did confirm with Cassie, or that Cassie did end up telling her about filing the lawsuit, that Bonner had read Cassie's lawsuit, and Bonner confirms that she did hire lawyers to sue Mr. Combs after she was asked multiple times by the defense about it. And so again, we kind of get into Tyrone Blackburn being present during the first meeting with the government, because that was her attorney at the time. And so around November of 2023, which notably is the same month that Cassie filed her now settled lawsuit against Diddy, that Bonner was actually working with Cassie during this time, and she was working with Cassie in December of 2023 too. So for that 2 month period. And so the defense says that Bonna and Cassie were talking about their lawsuits together, and Bonna explained that I kept my matter private. Cassie had asked Bonna's permission to use her name in her lawsuit. However, Bonna did say no. And so I felt like the defense was kind of trying to imply that Cassie and Bonna may have concocted their stories together, get their allegations kind of on the same page. And so Nicole Westmoreland was just firing off questions where she's like, you and Cassie discussed whether she saw the incident play out. Bonna says yes. She told me she saw it. Did Cassie tell you that she didn't see it and you discussed that? I don't remember. You told Ms. Ventura she was there. You and Cassie had all these conversations in November of 2023. True? Bonna replied, I don't know if it's all the conversations you're talking about. Nicole Westmoreland says, you and Cassie had these conversations in November of 2023. True. Bonna responds, I don't know. Well, why don't I show you something to refresh your memory? And that's kind of a line that Nicole Westmoreland says pretty often, especially when Bonna just didn't recall or didn't remember just the discussions that she had. And so it seemed like the defense was getting a little harsh at times, but they had to do their job. And so Nicole Westmoreland was like, you spoke about this balcony incident, and you talked about the dates, you talked about location, you talked about who was there and who was not there. And Bonna said, yeah. And so then the defense was asking about Sean Combs' criminal case overall and how the case is playing out on the news. And Bonna was explaining, yeah, it's everywhere. And so as far as just her lawsuit, then they were kind of getting into just the demand letters too, just as far as how the first demand letter was sent on January 31st of 2024 to Diddy. However, on January 18th of 2024, it was the first meeting that Bonna had with the government. And so Tyrone Blackburn, according to Bonna, was the one who had actually wrote that Diddy threatened to kill her by hanging her over a balcony. And so it seemed like from the defense's perspective, they were trying to point out that two of these alleged incidents were combined and they were the same incident together, because as you can recall, during her direct testimony, she was explaining that Diddy said he was the devil and that he could kill her, but then the hotel balcony incident was just something completely different on a completely separate date. And so then Nicole Westmoreland was really kind of getting into the demand letter there. It's like, your demand letter was sent after you met with the government. There was a long pause there. There was no answer. Then the defense showed Bonna the documents again to refresh her recollection, and that being the demand letter. Bonna maintained that she fired Tyrone Blackburn because he got some of the allegations and the information wrong, but she says she doesn't remember when she told the government about Diddy threatening to kill her, meaning she didn't remember what meeting she had disclosed this to prosecutors. Nicole Westmoreland's like, oh, well, you remember Mr. Combs telling you to stop selling drugs to Cassie? And then Bonna was like, I don't remember that. And the defense was kind of implying that Bonna couldn't afford her drug habit that she had outside of Cassie paying for the drugs that she would get from Bonna. And so really the defense was kind of just trying to kind of get at her as far as just why these allegations aren't matching up. They were using documents against her as far as her meetings with the government, her demand letters that were sent to Sean Combs, and even just kind of comparing it all to her testimony, where they were pointing out that Bonna had said kind of 3 different instances of kind of the same story, but that they were all different answers. And so the defense really kind of made it seem that Bonna was lying about this incident, and that if this incident did happen, that she's just still not remembering the full details of it, possibly because she might have been on drugs during that time.
Yeah, and whether or not, I think there was such an effort to be specific about certain episodes, whether it's the knife or the balcony. Is this actually the way it went down? Is it too fantastical? Is it too unbelievable in a way? So I definitely hear where they went. And I'll tell you this much. The defense has been, quite effective in the way they have been cross-examining these key witnesses, whether it's Dawn Richard, whether it is Cassie, whether it is Mia, whether it is Miss Mongolian. Whether or not the jury, what they're taking away from it or not, whether it takes away from their credibility. I mean, they have been doing an effective job at hitting these major points, and we'll see if it raises a point of reasonable doubt. And by the way, in terms of the cross-examination with respect to the balcony incident, specifically, what did they question her about?
Yeah, well, the answers, I will tell you, was really a lot of I don't knows or I don't remembers. And so they kind of brought back the demand letter. And then Nicole Westmoreland asked Bonna, didn't you tell the government you were at a party when this incident happened? Bonna responds, I don't remember. You didn't say that you were sleeping until your civil complaint came out. And Bonna responds, I don't remember. You never said that Diddy was banging on the front door. Bonna says, I don't remember. You didn't tell the government in your first interview that you told your girlfriend to hide. Bonna responds, I don't remember. Well, the first time you alleged that this happened was in your civil complaint. Bonner says yes. Didn't you tell the government you were smoking weed, but in your demand you said that it was a cigarette, but then in the second meeting you told the government you were pretending to smoke weed? Aren't those three different things? And Bonner said they're three different things. And Nicole Westmoreland is like, didn't you tell the government you were looking into the apartment, not outside of the view on the balcony or the patio, and that Diddy was charging at you and you could see him charging at you? And Nicole Westmoreland said, I don't remember. And I think one of the biggest points that they had made during this is that Nicole Westmoreland questioned Bonner just about, in your civil complaint, didn't you tell the government that Diddy sexually assaulted you? And Bonner says, I showed them where his hands were placed on my body. Nicole Westmoreland's like, you said that Diddy groped your breast and he sexually assaulted you. And Bonner is kind of like, well, my lawyers, yes. Nicole Westmoreland said, you didn't tell the government that Mr. Combs groped your breast to the point that you had bruises. Bonner responds, I don't remember. Then again, kind of the defense comparing Bonner's civil complaint with her testimony that she had today. Didn't Mr. Combs hang you over the banister twice? And Bonner was explaining, I was struggling with my feet. Well, didn't you tell the government on April 9th of 2025 that your feet were on and then off the rail? Didn't you tell the government just 2 days ago that you don't recall the details of the balcony incident? And Bonner was responding, I don't know. And so I feel like the defense was scoring some wins here, because if you're meeting with the government very recently, just within this year, or even as far back as a couple days ago, and you're saying you don't remember what you had disclosed to the government during this, and you're saying this multiple times at a lot of different answers, you can expect that the defense probably scored a win here, because if you can't recall kind of what was going on, then it seemed like the defense kind of took that opportunity to really just kind of go for the gusto there.
It's an issue. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is not a clean prosecution here. I mean, there are issues with these witnesses. Is it enough to raise reasonable doubt? Is it enough to say that they're not telling the truth? I don't know what the jurors are thinking, but these are definitely points that the defense had to hit and are hitting. So, I mean, really, just another important day of testimony. Real quick, Elizabeth, before I let you go, what can we anticipate for tomorrow?
What we can anticipate for tomorrow is Bonner still under cross-examination. So Nicole Westmoreland told the judge that she wanted to get the cross-examination done today because the government has another big witness that is coming up. There's a lot of scheduling going on with that. So this next witness has to be off the stand by next Thursday, and that witness being Jane Doe, who is one of the alleged Sean Diddy Combs victims. And so we can expect tomorrow morning, which we do have a delayed start tomorrow, that Bonner will resume her cross-examination. And then according to Nicole Westmoreland, she still has about 30 to 45 minutes. And then we presume that there might be some redirect. And so probably at least the first hour of tomorrow, once we begin court, will be on Bonner. And then we can expect the next big witness to testify, and that being Jane herself. So it is another busy day for the government, for the defense, for both parties, all parties in this matter. But it seems like once Bonner's off the stand, then Jane will kind of take up most of the testimony going into even next week and mid to late next week too.
And she's not pregnant, so she's alleged victim number 2. There's not a rush to get her off the stand like Cassie, and she is, I would argue, the second most important witness in this case. She makes up one independent sex trafficking charge, also part of the racketeering, so we will see what Jane has to say. Elizabeth Millner, thank you so much for taking the time. Great reporting as always.
Thanks, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.